This video is the first part of a 5-part series on Calvinism. This is just going to be a real, concise, introductory level treatment of the subject. This is a topic that, has produced a lot of books over a lot of centuries, so it's hard to cover too much ground in a short video, but the theological system known as Calvinism, the name is derived from John Calvin, the 16th century reformer, one of the leading figures of the Reformation of the Church in the 16th century. The doctrines that are called, Calvinism didn't exactly originate with John Calvin, so it'd be a misunderstanding to think that he devised this system of doctrine. He was one of the first persons to put it in somewhat of a systematic form. Calvinists today often make much of the fact that what Calvin taught is essentially the same thing that St. Augustine taught, with a few adjustments, certainly. Calvin's theology was also extremely close to the theology of Martin Luther, again with a few adjustments. So Calvinism often is summed up by using an acrostic, tulip, and each of the letters in the word tulip stands for a particular point in the system. The T stands for total depravity, so we're going to talk about that for just a second. This is a very misunderstood doctrine. Some people hear the phrase total depravity and think that what is meant by that phrase is what we would call utter depravity. This notion that everybody is just as bad as they possibly can be. And that's not what the doctrine of total depravity teaches. Total depravity basically means that because of the fall of the human race, which we read about in the book of Genesis, because of the rebellion of the human race against God, the very beginning of Genesis, all humans that have been born since then have been born with a sinful nature. The doctrine of original sin, part of that doctrine is that the effects of Adam's sin, Adam's turning away from God, didn't just affect Adam, it affected his entire posterity. So that means that all of us are born into this world in a state of depravity, which means a state of being turned away from God in our hearts. Our hearts are crooked from the beginning. The natural state of our hearts is turned away from God. This depravity is called total because it means that it affects every part of the human person. It affects the will, it affects the emotions, it affects everything. There's no part of the human that is not tainted by sin. The fall's effects on the human race were total. Didn't leave anything. There's no unfallen pocket anywhere within the human race. A consequence of believing in total depravity is to believe that we can't straighten out our hearts, which are bent. They're bent, and they can't be straightened by human willpower because our human wills are also tainted by sin. So we can't come to the table with anything able to fix the problem because what we bring to the table is itself tainted by sin. The best treatment of this doctrine, in my opinion, is Martin Luther's 1525 book, The Bondage of the Will. And I don't think Luther ever even used the phrase total depravity, but he clearly echoed this central truth that our wills are fallen, our wills are enslaved to sin. And what that means is we have a free will in the sense that we can make decisions and we can choose to do what we want to do. But our will is not free in the sense that it's not able to want what is right and righteous. We can do what we want, but we lack the ability to want what we should. We don't want God's will. We don't want righteousness. And that's because our hearts are bent. Our hearts are turned away from God, and we can't unbend. That's the main point of the doctrine of total depravity.